Welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone. Today is February 24th, 2014, and we are live from Dallas, Texas. Hope everyone's doing well. It's been a great couple weeks for us at Silhouette Patterns. We have shipped more product than I think I've ever seen in a lifetime. We are still shipping product because there was this is a catch-22. We like to do sales. Obviously, we like to do sales, but it's difficult to do sales because we run out of product, and it's not even that we run out of product. Our suppliers run out of product because we sell that much at one time. So please be patient, and I'm sorry. We are shipping as fast as we get it, but if you're delayed, that's why. All the spring patterns have been shipped. Those are all out. Those were out last week. So we have just never had so much shipping going on at one time that we're all shipped out. I think that's a Gilligan Island term or something. But anyway, thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you, thank you. Tonight we're going to talk about easy lining jackets, and I want to do a couple variations of the pattern of the month 1750. Actually, each time there's a pattern of the month, every month that there's a pattern of the month, one of the webcasts in the month will be on variations on that pattern, because I really do believe that we get so many ideas and we learn so much by just changing a pattern around a little bit. Tonight is not any exception. It's really, I think there's some really cool things that I did with the patterns, and so I want you to see how easy they are and how basic they are, so that you can really start to see that one pattern has a lot to offer you. And I'm not going to put out that pattern and make those few changes, because there's so many other patterns we could put out that are more difficult than just simply, a slash here and a slash there. All right, so in our traditional format, we're going to start with questions and answers. And I get so many questions, you guys. I get really a lot. And I kind of say, I try to answer really most of them. Once in a while, the same question keeps coming up. And so when that happens, I feel like it's something that needs to be advised or brought through the webcast, and so I will. But other than that, most of the questions we answer individually, but sometimes I think the questions answered here, you just need greater clarification, is I think the main reason that we get them. Okay, so let's start. Where did you get snaps for the jacket you are wearing? Joann's. It's a nasty word. Hancock's. Any Hobby Lobby store has snaps. In fact, because I was putting snaps on something today, this is what they look like. This is the one I use. This is kind of like a pair of pliers, but it's for the snaps. They're so easy to do. They're so quick to do. Make a little tiny hole in the garment and then just smash it through. Make sure it's lined up. If it's not lined up, you'll ruin the snap. But even if you ruin it, it's fixable. So I always buy a few more than what I need so that I can ruin them and not worry about it. All right, what amount of sleeve cap ease is needed for a blouse and a jacket? Well, sleeve cap ease, that's the amount of the cap seam line, is larger than the armhole. And it's different in a blouse and in a jacket. A blouse is 1 inch, so there's a 1/2 inch in the front and a 1/2 inch in the back, and a jacket is 2 inches, which is 1 inch in the front and 1 inch in the back. So blouses and jackets are different as a base pattern in that way. Okay? And I'm going to touch a little bit on that tonight. I wanted to make a couple of jackets. What style would you recommend for petite plus size with full bust, belly, and narrow shoulders? All of our patterns. When I choose a pattern style, I don't make it for someone who's 6 feet and 100 pounds. I make it for somebody who's, how tall are you? 5'2", and that's the person I make it for, because I really believe that if that there are certain items that look really good on you, and when you look good, then so will everyone. Will follow that style. It's remembered that you need to have it shaped. Princess seam is always a positive, but at least if it's not princess seam, it needs shaping, darting, those type of things. So those things are really, really important to remember. And it needs to be in proportion, which reminds me, I'm going to read this letter really quick. This is from a customer. And again, this is one of these cases where I just get an email and it's just something that I feel like you guys really should hear. This is from a lady who had taken a workshop, and then she just kind of wrote kind of a synopsis. She said, I wish I had known more about proportions beforehand. I really need to she's only 5'4". I really need to shorten a jacket by I'm confident doing this, thanks but her pockets are too low, so you have to be careful that you shorten between the waist and the hip. Don't just shorten off the bottom of the jacket because you want to keep everything proportioned to your body. All of that stuff we've done webcast in it. It's also in that book, Dress to Kill Gently, and it reads, reads very easy. Also, she said, I wish I'd bought better fabric. I'd be happier with the result. My dear friend has since given me this advice. Don't settle for the cheapest fabric you can find. Buy the best you can afford. Your time and your work are worth it. So my advice to share with viewers is to check proportions and buy good fabrics. And I think that's really true. And that's not to say, obviously, every time we sew, because we know we're trying things out. But there's a lot of times when many of us who have worked for years and years and years to try to be successful with fitting, and we haven't been successful, it's hard for us to believe all of a sudden we're going to be successful. All of a sudden there's going to be some magic little pattern out there that's going to work for me now. And so we go in with this cheapy fabric, and it stretches and it moves and it grows, and it's really hard to work with. So you'll know when it's time to take it up a notch and to go to a little bit better fabric. And it doesn't have to be expensive. We've got a lot of great fabrics on our website, $19.99, $14.99, and these are fabrics that would normally be $50 and $60. They're very good fabrics at very reasonable prices. All right, so I wanted to read that. Does Shelly's dress number 4014 front pieces have lining, self-lining, or a small seam around the neck? Well, how about all of the above? Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about here. Let me grab it just a minute. So this is Shelly's dress. I just happen to have it here. And this is a back facing that's low, so it's almost double because it goes into the arm, it goes below the armhole. Then there's a narrow neck edge that faces this, but the whole front has two pieces because it's asymmetric, and one wraps from one side and one wraps to the other. So the front really has two layers. I'm not sure if that answered a question for you, but there you have it. Is the black Panorama fabric you sell suitable for a dress? Absolutely. Panorama fabric today, it's everywhere. It's tops, it's tank tops, it's bottoms. The world belongs to Panorama knit right now. It's just incredible as to how many garments it's being made up out of. Tonight, Robin's jacket, I did a Panorama knit, and I wanted you to kind of see. The nice thing about Panorama knit, not all of them, but some of them, you can use both sides, and they're beautiful. Please explain the regular sizes and the W sizes. I used to always say about 5 years ago, but it's been well over 5 years ago. In fact, I think it's been 20 years ago. Saks Fifth Avenue, clearly, who has a very upscale clientele, found that they could not satisfy a customer who was beyond a size 20. Basically, not that they didn't carry the size, they carried the size, but what happened when that customer put on a jacket, by the time she got her circumference, the neck was too large and the shoulders were too wide. So Saks Fifth Avenue actually got together with JCPenney's world headquarters in Dallas, Texas, and they spent a large amount of money researching a woman who had gained weight and increased her dress size because of that weight gain. Now, contrary to that, prior, a woman who increased her dress size basically, or supposedly, increased her dress size because she was a larger bone structure. So someone who was 5'8" would never be a size 2 because their bone structure would prohibit them from being, in that size. So as the sizes increased, it was based on bone structure. The assumption was that they were getting taller. They're literally their bones, so their shoulders are wider, etc., etc. The W sizing is not graded in length. It's not graded in width. It is graded only in circumference. And so the neck and the shoulders, while they get a little bit wider, very, very little. That is a heavier upper arm. If you measure 15 inches in your upper arm, that's a W size. So they are smaller necklines, smaller shoulders. She's actually a smaller boned woman, but she has weight gain on her that has moved her into a larger size. That's what the W size addresses, and I think we do it really, really well. Those W sizes fit really well. And for those of you who will try it and not automatically assume the shoulders will be too wide, you'll find they fit very well. Okay, hope that helps. What size are the snaps on the jacket? Where's my glasses? 5/8 inch. 5/8 inch snaps. Can you tell me how to adjust the sleeve if I'm raising the armhole 1 inch? Yes. There's numerous ways, but let's just suppose the only thing you're doing is raising the armhole 1 inch at the underarm seam, so 1 inch front, 1 inch back. You would take the cap of the sleeve and you would make a tuck through the cap that was equal to a 1/2 inch, because that 1/2 inch twice would be your inch. So when you raise the armhole up, you should be shortening the cap height. Easy enough? It's that easy. It's pretty simple. Pattern 1700 shawl collar jacket. What is the difference between the 1 through 4 and the 14 through 28? The garment measurement I want to use shows up on both of them. And for many of our sizes, they actually do cross, because in the real world it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8. So let me say that again. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8. The 5 is actually a smaller woman in many cases than the 4. But again, she's a shorter, heavier woman than the size 4 woman. The size 4 is taller and larger boned. So you have to ask yourself, if I'm larger boned and taller, I would go with the 4. If I'm shorter and have more weight and smaller boned, then I would go with the 5. All right, hope that helps. I'd go with the W. If we are 5'2", if we are 5'2", don't we have to typically shorten the pattern? No, not always. Aren't they made for a 5'8" person? They're made for a 5'8". Our fit model is 5'8". That fit model is not me, by the way. Many people have said this to me over the years. Oh, you make things to fit you. No, I don't. I've been in the industry for a lot of years. I make things to fit the standards in the industry, and right now it's 5'8". Eventually it'll be taller because it's always evolving. We did Max's jacket in January, and when we did Max's jacket and I was telling you how to fit it, and Robin's jacket is the same way, there is a window where the waist is approximately kept the same. And the reason that's done that way is so that heights from 5 foot to 6 feet don't have to change the waist. They don't have to shorten the waist. Now if you have a sway back, that's a different issue. But normal shortening, no. In most of our patterns you won't have to. If you kind of take a look with the French dart, all you have to do is stop stitching a little bit earlier. And I don't think in most cases you even have to do that. I'm not saying in the cases of our blouses, I'm always encouraging you to drape in the darts after the pattern's been cut. Don't predetermine your waist before. Just simply make your waist where it is at the end by putting the blouse on and then draping in those darts and bringing it in at the waist. That's what determines a waist. The only time you have to predetermine it is if there's a seam line, or if it goes in sharply at the waist, which ours don't do. You can do that after the fact. So many of you who are just conditioned to fixing that waistline beforehand need to kind of take a chill pill, step back. You don't need to do that. Okay, hopefully that helps. Are the zippers you sell separating zippers? They are. I don't need to sell zippers. You can get zippers everywhere. Separating zippers that are quality, that are metal, that are stylish, are, in my book, very hard to find. You can find plastic, but I couldn't find a decent zipper one day, and I was so mad I made them. So I got them made out of New York, and I really like them. You get to choose your little tabs, so every once in a while I change out the tabs, and they're all good. And I make them 16 or 18 inches long because you can always shorten them. They're pretty hard. You can't lengthen them. Okay. All right. So are we good? Question-wise? One more. Okay. I'm 5'8" and of regular weight, but sadly have saddlebag thighs. What proportions would you recommend for jacket and or shirt length? Well, your saddlebags don't make any difference when you're dealing with proportion. When you're dealing with proportions, proportions are just linear. So if you're 5'8", if you measure from your shoulder to your knee, you're going to be 40 inches. And you simply take that 40 inches and you can divide by halves, which is 20, and your jacket can be 20 inches. You can divide by thirds, which is 13, and your jacket can be 13 inches, which is what I have on. It's kind of to my waist. So all of those, just again go over proportions. There's not one right proportion, but you have to either dress in halves, thirds, fourths, or fifths. And again, we've got a webcast on it, and also we have the book, My Very Best Dressed Me. It's $20. It's on the website, and that covers all proportions. It's a little pictorial thing, and I think it's a good reference book. Okay, are we good? Okay, so tonight's 1750 is called Robin's Jacket. I want to go over 3 different ways that you can do this jacket and I think get a completely different look every time. So I want to talk about that. Robin's Jacket is a shawl collar, it's a princess seam, and it has this little cutout for a pocket. So some cases we're going to observe that, in some cases we're not. Now in Robin's Jacket is an unlined jacket that uses a fabric that you like both sides, because all it does is the front lapel rolls back and you see the wrong side of the fabric. Alright, so you're going to use a fabric that you like on both sides because you're going to see both sides. Alright, so there's no front facing, there's just the front, and then it rolls back and becomes the facing. So the very first thing I want to show you is, if you want to and decide you want to do it out of a fabric that doesn't have a beautiful side on both. I mean, you don't have to do it with a fabric that you like both sides. You can take a fabric and you can, and in this case there's 2 layers here. So what I did is, and the reason I did this in this case, the fabric really it's a cashmere, and it was so lightweight that it really needed some additional body. So I fused the whole thing. I cut it all out, put the fusible underneath, fused each piece of the facing. So that means that when I folded this back, it would have been the black side, and I didn't want the black side to show, obviously. So I put 2 layers together. So I put 2 wrong sides together and then literally stitched all the way around each edge and finish. You want to finish the neck edge off first, but when I say finish it off, all you want to do is put the wrong sides together and leave the raw edges here, and then sew the princess seam so that both layers will be held into the princess seam. You also want 2 layers because you want, if you're going to do buttonholes or snaps, another layer in there is going to really be helpful. Okay, so this is an example of when I don't have a fabric that I like both sides. Many fabrics out there, leathers, etc., and that I want to, and I don't have to do both with the same fabric. I could put the inside fabric completely different than the outside fabric, so that when it folded back I would have a lapel that was different. Alright, so I want to show you this one, and this is the same thing, a little less complicated, because in this case this is alpaca, and I had this is a beautiful fabric, but again, it's not two-sided. It didn't need fusible, it didn't need any of that, so all I did was cut two fronts and then two front facings, put them wrong sides together, sew the princess seam, because what you want to do when you're not lining a jacket is you want to make sure you catch that seam so that the facing's held inside. If the facing's not held inside by a lining, which is typically in a lined jacket, the lining holds the facing in place. If it's not held in place with something, it should be stitched down. In many cases it's actually anchored into the seam. In some cases you'll see that there's a little stitch line right through here. All of those are okay. But in this case, you don't change how you finish it. You can still finish it, you can still do all the rest of your stuff, but I wanted you to see that way. So that's if you're, number one, using a fabric that isn't positive on both sides. So if it's only good on one side, then you want to go ahead and put them wrong sides together and then sew them both into the princess seam, anchor it in there, and then continue sewing just your regular way. Okay, now the other thing I want to show you, a couple variations on this. And the first one I want to show you is going to be this little peplum. The inside of this jacket? Okay, tell me what you want to see on the inside. If there's something particular you're looking for, just let me know. But again, see how this is my front seam here, and this is anchored into the princess seam right there. Okay? Is that enough? Alright. Alright, if you want to see something else, let us know. Alright, so what I want to show you is to make a little peplum. And now this is Robin's jacket. Now what I did in this case is I left out the pocket. There's no pocket. And I just made a little peplum on the bottom. Love this jacket. I think this is the cutest little thing in the world. I did this out of a pontoroma. I've got some new fabrics. In fact, I've got a lot of new fabrics in from New York, and we just haven't had a chance to get them up. We won't get them up probably until next week, even the week after, but we'll do our darndest. Okay, so this is a beautiful, it's a deep purple pontoroma, but it's light. It's very light. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So I wanted to make, and I kept the elastic back here. You wouldn't have to do that, but I liked it with the peplum. I felt like it gave it a little bit of oomph. So I want to show you how to do this. I want you to notice a couple things about this jacket. Number one, if you look down here, you have to decide when you're doing a peplum how much fullness you want. Now I'm going to give you some guidelines, and I'm going to show you how to do the pattern work on this. But you have to ultimately decide what you want to have. And then what's really important too when you do it is how you finish it, because I finished this side with nothing, because actually the real one is just going to be thread. So there's going to be a thread finish to this. There's not going to be any binding on it, but I wanted to show you a binding of it and see the difference between how much this side stands up and out, whereas this side with the peplum just kind of falls down. Okay, it just kind of falls down. So your trim selection, whatever trim you're deciding to do, will make a big impact as to what the garment looks like. So I want you to think about that ahead of time. Okay, let's back up and let's take it a little bit at a time. What I want is I want the Robin's jacket. I want no pocket. So when I cut this piece of Robin's jacket, I just cut straight down. I went off of a jacket that I have, sort of, kind of. I knew I wanted it to be shorter, and I guesstimated, and by the way, I love this jacket. I mean, I made all these right decisions, but I'm going to try to tell you kind of how I got there. I decided I wanted it shorter because a peplum really needs to be to the waist and about 6 inches below the waist, and if it gets too much longer than that, then it just... I don't know, it just doesn't look that great. So I took the jacket that it was, and I knew I needed to shorten it, so I shortened it by 4 inches. So I'm just going to use one of the pieces as an example. This is the back piece, and this back piece has been shortened by 4 inches. I just copied the pattern piece, took 4 inches off the bottom, and I was good to go. Alright, then what I did is I marked the waist. And on here, or I thought I marked the waist, maybe I cut off the waist. But the waist is about 6 inches. Oh, it's on the other side. I was going to say I knew I had marked this. The waist is 6 inches up from the bottom. So that's, I want the fullest part of the peplum at the bottom of the jacket, but I don't want the fullness to start up in here. I don't want it to start until the waist. So I marked the waist on the jacket, and I had known that from making it before, or you could compare it next to something else you have, and then I knew I wanted the fullness. Okay, the next part then is, how much fullness do you want to have? Most peplums, in order to be peplumy, they need, I don't think that's in the dictionary, they need to be 1 to 2. So that means you can take the circumference at the waist, and it needs to be double at the bottom of the peplum. Now again, that's all styling. I mean, you could say, oh gosh, I would never want that much. I don't want that much. And, you know, no. All those things you guys say to me. So you have to decide what you want, but I decided I wanted a 1 to 2. So at the waist was, excuse me, roughly 28 inches. We'll say 30 to make it easy, 30. And then at the hem, then I needed 60 inches. So I took the 60 inches and I divided by how many seams I was going to put additional fullness at. I was not going to put any at center front, so I didn't even count that seam. But every other seam I was going to put it at, and you have 2 sides to every seam. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have 14 places to add 30 inches. Is that right? No, to make it 60 inches. No, because it's already 30. Yeah, I have 14 places to make it 30 inches. So 30 divided by 14, there's 2 inches on each of those seams. Does that sound right? Okay, so then when I go to do it, I simply take my pattern piece, and I would make 4 slashes and separate, well remember, because on this pattern piece, this is the back, I've got to add 2 here and 2 here. So I've got to add 4 total. So I would make 2 slashes on each. You're going to make them up and then come over to the waistline to a pivot point. And then you're going to go up and go over to a pivot point. You can go a little above the waist, but don't get too much above the waist. Your fullness will start too soon. But also remember that you can always take that fullness out. So if in doubt, you're always better off to add a little more than to not add enough, because you can't add it once it's not there. Okay, so then I would take and I would separate these until I had an inch here, because that would be the 2 inches for this side, and then an inch here and an inch there, because that would be the 2 inches for that side. And that's it. That's all it is. But I've got to go through all the pieces. I've got to make sure that I'm adding 2 inches. Now if you're not sure, you could always add 2.5 because remember I said you could always take it out. So we're going to add, and just take it out. Now one thing, a common mistake that I see all the time, and women will say to me, well, why can't I just cut out? Why can't I just go this way? Well, you can, but you'll notice that when the pattern is pulled out like this, you'll notice that this side is actually shorter than this side. This is the correct way to do it. If you do it any other way, your pattern won't be accurate and your lengths won't match once they go down together. This bottom, it'll just be like a dog's hind leg. It'll just go all over the place if you don't slash it and do it appropriately. Now you can do whatever you want. Having said that, this definitely takes more time to do the slashing and open and all that, rather than just adding to the side 2 inches. But if you add to the side 2 inches on each side, your hem's not going to be straight. And you'll have to go back and, kind of cut it or whatever to get it straight. And I don't know. I think this is really actually in the long run, I think this is actually the easier way to do it. Okay, so in this particular case, I left the gathering because I really like that. I really like this feature of the jacket. To me, it makes it almost look like a little more sweater than it is a jacket. This is a knit, and so I really like the effect this had back there. I wanted to use stitching. I'm going to use stitching as opposed to any kind of binding because I felt like it was just softer, and again, that was to me conducive to the type of jacket that it was. Okay? All right, so any questions on this particular little peplum thing? And then I'm just going to put either a closure here, if some, I really just want two little snaps or two little something right there just to keep it really simple. Probably only will use one, but the goal is to just keep it informal, casual, and real simple. Okay, so anything on that? Any questions on that? Okay, do you then need to true up the hem edge? I think that was really the word I was looking for. Thanks for that question. If you do it this way, there is no truing, and that's why I recommend, because if you notice when you open these, the lengths stay the same, and when you just connect them at the bottom, it's all done accurately. There's no truing up. So, but if you just come out and then connect 2 inches, you don't know that length, and all the lengths will be different. So if you slash through the center and spread, then there's no truing. If you just add to the sides, yeah, then you're going to have to go back in and fix all the pieces. And remember, there's 2 fronts, 2 sides, 2 backs, 2 side backs. You know, you've got 8 pieces. So by the time you true all those up, you could end up just getting your jacket shorter and shorter and shorter. So I think that's how we think, oh, this is so much easier to do it this way, and then we kind of run into problems. What kind of stitching do you mean? What kind of stitching? Okay. What kind of what kind of stitching? I'm sorry. Like you can use a lot of your machines have a lot of decorative stitching. So going around the outside, you know, the pattern, and a lot of the times I do it, I say do a binding. But there isn't any reason you can't do a decorative stitching that goes all the way around. It's softer. I love it. A buttonhole stitch. I mean, I'm sorry, not a buttonhole stitch, a blanket stitch. Anything along those lines, there's lots of decorative stitches on your machines. So you could use decorative threads. There just lots and lots of options. There are probably more options than you even want, but that's just one option that you have. You don't have to use a trim in and of itself. This is a fold over elastic, but you don't have to do that, that's going to come off. I just did that because I wanted you to see the difference between this peplum, to where I love this soft. I just don't like this. It's like a bird or something taken off. I don't know. I don't like it. But anyway. Okay, what kind of stitching to finish? Is it a serged edge? You could do a serged edge. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't. I think though that most of us on even our old machines, like I remember the machine I had post college had that little cam and it had all those decorative stitches. There's a lot of really cool decorative stitches out there, and a lot of times we just don't use them. So investigate those, and you know, maybe just pick one and stitch it out and see how it looks. But it's really easy because you do them right on the edge, and then both sides are really pretty. So just kind of look through some of those. That's what I mean, those decorative stitches. How heavy a knit do you need if you use a knit? I'm going to use Pontoroma as an example. Pontoroma works well. I think if you get any heavier than a Pontoroma, it's not going to peplum well. It's going to stick out rather than drape. So I wouldn't go heavier than a Pontoroma. If you go lighter, I think a rayon knit's just too light. Silk knits, those are too light because they're just too thin for a jacket. So somewhere in between, Pontoroma being the heaviest, a nice mid-weight knit works absolutely beautiful. In this particular case, I didn't need any of, what was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say. But I did want to point out to you on the stitching, I know you can't see it, but a lot of times in knits, I actually serged this on the serger. I just serged it together, and then I top stitched because I see a lot of knits, St. John knits, if you look at them carefully, a lot of their knits jackets will have little top stitching. It looks really pretty. It really looks very nice to do that. So I just kind of added that in. Okay? All right. Get a nice bodied knit though. Since you used a knit, did you use a smaller size than you do with a woven fabric? No, I didn't. That's what I was actually saying. I did not expect, I was using a knit just for the beauty of the knit and because I love the fabric. I'm not relying on the knit for fit. So I used the exact same size that I did with a woven. I didn't change anything. All right? Okay. Can you review how to do the elastic on the back of the jacket? Do you stretch it? Yes, you have to stretch it because then it relaxes and it makes the gathering. So I use the 2-inch wide elastic, which a lot of you have. You could use a thinner, but I like the 2-inch wide. I like the look it gives. So you want to use 2/3. If you measure from your side seam, not the center back, but the two seams to the side of the center back, which would be your center back to side and center back to side. That's where your elastic goes, between those two seams, and that's marked on the pattern. Between those two, let's say it measures 9 inches. I'm going to use 6 to 7 inches of elastic. So I would use 6 if it was very, very lightweight, a silk jacket. I would use 7 if it was a little bit stronger knit. So I used 7 in this particular case because the distance between those two seams was 9 inches. Now as it changes, just use about 2/3 of whatever that number is, but you could go closer to the number rather than the 2/3. So in this particular case, you just stretch it out and you just stitch. I stitch the rectangle, I go 1 in the middle, and then I go 2 more. So there's actually 5 rows of stitching on the back, but that's just my preference. There's no, if you just did one big box in the back, that would be fine. You could use a thinner elastic. There are lots of options out there. Okay, remember it's all decorative. It's not there's no rules governing it. Okay, then I want to show you a different option with Robin's jacket. Also, I really like this option. I had seen this jacket in Neiman's, and the front wasn't the same, but it was the back that I really liked. And so this is the back of Robin's jacket, and it's got a little pleat there in the back. And on the back of the pleat, there's little snaps. Now those snaps, they don't have anything on the back side of them, but I really liked how they laid. I just really liked the look of what that was. So this is, I'm just going to show you real quick again the pattern work and how I did it, and I think it's a great finish to the jacket. So this is a fabric, and again we'll have this fabric. We haven't got it up now. It's like a denim. It's a black and gray, and I would like to, if we have time, I'd like to set in a sleeve again to this jacket. I did the one, I'd like to do the other, not just because I'm trying to finish the jacket, but because this is a lighter fabric, and I had a lot of comments about use a lighter fabric and y'all could see it better. I've done this many, many times. I think a lot of you have seen it, but I still would like to do it one more time. There's the set-in sleeve. I did that a little bit earlier today. The other side, we're going to walk through that. But before we do that, I'd really like to go to the back pleat and show you this back pleat. I obviously, once your elastic is there, I took the pleat up to the elastic. In this particular case, because I wanted that longer back, I actually popped that elastic up another 2 inches. It doesn't really matter where that elastic goes. It doesn't have to be at the waist, but again, I wanted a little bit longer pleat in the back, and so I made the elastic go up a little bit. So I'm going to put that here for just a minute and hope it stays, and then I want to show you the pattern work for that particular piece. Alright, we're going to take the jacket back. Sorry, let me find it. And anytime we're going to make a pleat, this is going to be the back of my jacket. So wherever I want that pleat to be, and of course I measured up to where I had typically the elastic, I'm simply going to add, and the width of the pleat really doesn't have that much bearing in it. I made it 1.5 inches. So I made it 1.5 inches wide, a little bit less. It's about 1.25 inches is really what it is. And then it's just a square. So now as you sew your jacket, you sew down to here, and then you stop, and both of these press back the other way. So this would press like so inside your jacket. You don't see it from the outside. It presses like this. Then you make another pattern piece that is, okay, so this is all cut as one. Even though I added this on, it's all cut as one. Then you make another pattern piece that's twice the width of this pleat. So if this is 1.25 inches, this is 2.5. Because once this folds back, this actually sews, these raw edges sew together. And the two of them together, sorry about that, is what makes your pleat. Remember, the seam is closed. The seam is closed up to this point, so you see there's your pleat. And you have it open on the other side as well. You don't have to stitch it horizontally. All you have to do is come in and stitch it that way horizontally. The width of the seam will support the pleat being open. And also keep in mind, what you're going to do is you're going to come back and put snaps in here, and those snaps will also support it. And also, once I did the pleat, I put my elastic right over the top and I stitched that down. So that actually, if you look at the inside of the jacket, let's take this apart here. That's actually holding that pleat in place. So there's the pleat, there's the center pleat, and there's the elastic that came right over the top of that pleat to hold it in place. So that's all you see on the inside of the jacket. It's very beautiful. Even though it's unlined, it's really pretty. Alright? Okay, so then I came back and I just put my little holes there and I put my snaps in, and when I come in with the binding, you'll want to open that pleat up as you go through the binding. Don't close it and go over it with the binding, because otherwise you won't be able to get your pleat open. Or, you know, it'll look silly. Even though you don't need to open it, it'll still look silly. So open it up, go up and in the pleat, and then it will fold and you can press it. You could stitch it, you know, maybe like right there, just to hold it. Don't stitch it on this edge because it will look like it's stitched, and you want it to look like it just falls naturally. Alright? So let's go over the pattern work for that and make sure you understand how to do that. And the reason I'm doing this, I'm hoping that this is a positive for everybody. Number one, just to learn how to create different things. I could put a pleat anywhere. I could put it on my cuff, in the seam. I could put it in my skirt. I can put them anywhere, and all they are is a rectangle done down, and then whatever width I want them to be on both sides, and then the back pleat is done the amount double, and it comes back and cleans up the pleat. Okay, so the goal here too is to try to make this really, really clear, because when you guys start asking me stuff through emails like how wide and how long, I don't remember any of that stuff. But it doesn't matter necessarily. That's not what's important. What is important is kind of the how to add it on, and for that you can replay these and hear them over and over. Okay, any questions on how to add that pleat in the back? Good, good, good. And then of course, I just think this is the cutest little look in this jacket. And it's just such a nice little back detail that it really makes a big difference. And then of course in the front, I put our little silhouette pattern labels. You guys all got your labels or getting your labels? Stitched elastic in the back. Oh, on the inside? I don't think you can see it. It's black on black, you guys. Yeah, there's 5 rows. I do it the same. Go ahead. I do it the same. Whenever I do it, I do around the edge, through the middle, and then 2 more. And that's just what I do, because I like a wider elastic in the back. I think it looks really nice. These are 5/8 inch snaps too. You really, if you go any smaller, it'll look silly on a jacket of this size. If you go any larger, I mean, you know, you could, but they start to look a little bit out of proportion to me. So I stay with the 5/8. And the 5/8 are considered large. Most of the time when you see them, you'll see that they call them the large snap is what they call them. Okay. Questions? Everybody is okay on how to do that? How the peplum, there is no peplum in the front. The peplum, there's nothing been added at the front, so the front just hangs down. The peplum isn't going to start until you put it where, I mean, I started it in these two seams, so that's where the peplum is. This has not got anything added in, and so the peplum doesn't start until that seam. Okay? Okay. Alright, so let's sew in a sleeve. Let's do a sleeve, and I'm going to verbalize this as we do it, and we're going to try to move the camera so that you all can see it. Now I am working on a fabric. This is like a lightweight denim, and I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way. I'm going to try to do everything perfect here so you can just really see. I've got my tie interface now. I think everybody's okay with what that is, how to do it, how to get to it. Just keep in mind it has to be a bias, and I have to turn my machine to based. I've got mine at 5.5. It has to be based. If it's not a based, the sleeve can't pull back up, and that's a really critical part. Alright, so in the sleeve, this is, if you notice, it's kind of concave here and convex there. The concave part doesn't need any easing. It's a one-to-one with the armhole in the sleeve, so don't change any of that. It's just right up in here is where it needs tie interfacing, or where it needs to be eased in. So that's where I'm going to start it. In the front, it's about the seam line. In the back, it goes down below the seam line, so don't use the seams as a gauge. Alright, so I'm just putting that tie interfacing, I'm lining it up with the edge of the sleeve fabric. So I'm on the inside of the sleeve, or the wrong side of the sleeve, and I'm lining up the edge of the tie interfacing with the edge of the sleeve, and then the rest of the tie interfacing, because it's 1 inch wide, is in the inside of the sleeve. So I sink my needle down, and when I do that, make sure that's out of the way for you, I'm just going to literally give it a little bit of tug. You can see it gets narrower as I pull, and I'm stitching right on, I'm basting right on the stitch line. I'm basting right on the stitch line. So if I have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, this will not work with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. It's way too, well, look, it won't work. It's too, there's too much extra. It ruffles too much. So it's got to be a 3/8 inch seam allowance for this to be successful. What I want to do as I'm pulling this is I want to make sure that I'm pulling it evenly all the way around. Don't pull real hard. And so normally when I do this, I will, kind of somewhat try to do the whole thing in one amount. But keep in mind, if I'm pulling too hard, my machine won't progress forward. If I'm using a regular stitch as opposed to a basting stitch, then the tie interfacing can't retract itself because the stitches are too close together. So once I have done this, what you see is that beautiful sleeve head. Okay, it's all done up for us. So then I'm just going to fold this to where it mirror images itself. I mean, you can mark the notches. I have no problem with you marking them. I'm just going to put a pin at the top. If you've marked them, then you probably don't even need to do this step. You can just follow the markings. And then I'm going to turn my machine back to regular stitch. And the other thing I want to talk about here for just a minute before I set the sleeve in is the shoulder pad. So I did the shoulder pad so you could see. I serged along this edge. This edge is not connected to the thickest part of the shoulder pad. Now in this particular jacket, because I'm using 1/2 inch shoulder pads, I decreased the shoulder angle, so I increased it down the difference of the shoulder pad, and I did not drop the armhole down. I decided I wanted a smaller armhole, so I did not drop the armhole down. I did not restore the armhole back to what it was. I actually shortened the cap height on the sleeve. So this cap height is shorter than the pattern by my 1/2 inch. Okay, the 1/2 inch, the difference of the shoulder pad. Okay, so again with the shoulder pad, I serged all the way around so that the bottom of the shoulder pad is covered. That's how it's going to sit inside my jacket, so that when I look inside my jacket, I won't see the shoulder pad. I'll just see this nice covering. But don't try to attach it through the thickness of the shoulder pad. That's not going to work. And remember, the longer part goes to the front. It fills in the hollow that's in our chest. The shorter goes to the back because our back is convex. Alright, so I'm going to steal this jacket that I left here, which we did that just absolutely perfect, and I'm going to go ahead and set this in. And I just start by the top pin and the seam. You can see my larger seam there, and I just left it in the jacket. You could, I guess, reduce it, but I didn't. So I'm going to put that in place in that one. Then what I do is I just kind of keeping the edges even. You have to keep the edges even, because if you don't keep the edges even, because the seams are concave and convex, one starts to get a lot longer and one starts to get a lot shorter. So you really just can't set in sleeves with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. I'm sure you could, but it's so much harder, and I don't think they look good. I think that if we do get them in, they have all kinds of ruffly things because there's too much seam allowance on one edge versus the other edge. Alright, so I'm just kind of putting a few pins in just to make sure my sleeve is going to work. If it didn't go in, and it is, I could take the tie interfacing out. Maybe I didn't pull hard enough. If it doesn't go in, and if I take the stitching out of the tie interfacing, I can use that same strip again. It doesn't ruin the tie interfacing by one time stitching it. If I stitched it maybe 15 times, I mean, that might ruin it. I don't know that I've ever had it ruined. But don't feel like, if you make a mistake, you can't fix it. Okay, then the bottom part of the sleeve, that is where I want it to be. So just as to know, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 8 pins. If you pin too much, then it just takes a lot of time. I don't think it gets to be any more accurate. Remember, I've turned my machine back to my 3.5 stitch. I'm going to put the tie interfacing down against the feed dogs. That sleeve goes down. It absolutely makes no difference where you start on this sleeve, as long as I stitch all the way around. I go in a full circle and I stitch 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do that. In fact, just in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the pins in. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, some of you on your machines, you just can't do that, but I'm going to try to move that fabric out of the way. And while I'm stitching it, I don't know if I can do that, give it a little, kind of a little bit of a tug. I mean, nothing like pull, don't go so hard, but I know we are on the wrong side of that machine. I'm just going to go all the way around. And the good news is, because my sleeve is on top, or I'm sorry, my sleeve is on the bottom, those feed dogs are helping me put that sleeve in place. And the last sleeve you put in, I think, is the hardest, just because you've got the whole jacket in your way. Even the sleeve I put in earlier, there just wasn't as much junk in the way as what there gets to be now once you've got the whole jacket together. This is really the last thing you're doing before you're finishing your jacket. And then I just want to press it, show you how to put the shoulder pad in. I'll show you the other side. And I'm hoping with this lighter fabric, because it's like gray, light gray, you can really see what we're doing here. Besides the fact that my hand's in the way. Okay, so I'm going to come back. Let's come back to the iron, just so we can kind of see what we did all the way around. And we'll press it, call it good. Okay, so let's take a look at it on the inside. It's just stitched all the way around, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Keep that stitching straight as you can, all the way around. Notice the basting from the tie interfacing is still there. I will want to remove it. I'll definitely want to take it out, even if it doesn't show. I think that overall, and it's just basted, so it's really, it'll take you a little bit of time, and I'm not going to do it now just because you all know how to take out basting thread. It'll take you a little bit of time, but just be patient with that process. The sleeve has a tendency just to relax a little bit more once that basting stitches out. So just go around and do that. And I would recommend, before you take the basting out, look at the sleeve. Let's take a look at it. I've done a few sleeves, so I think it's right. But anyway, I would just double check the sleeve just to make sure you like the way it is, you like the easing, that there's no, like, I call them fripples because I don't know what else to call them, that there's no fripples in there that you don't like. I mean, it really is just a beautiful set-in sleeve. Alright, then once you like that and you're okay with that, go ahead and take all that basting out of the tie interfacing. Obviously that's not hampering the sleeve or changing the sleeve in any way, so just reach in there and get that out. Take the time to get it out. Okay, then I'm just going to show you real quickly. We're just going to press it. I left the iron on so that I could press this for you. And when I put it on the board, literally I want all those seams to go out. If you notice when the sleeve is like this, brand new sewn in, all of these seams already come in. So I really don't even have to press that. All I'm really pressing is this section, and it's kind of where the tie interfacing goes. And I'm pressing that whole section. I'm just using the end of the board, and I'm not against hams. I just think that they're really cumbersome. They're hard to use, and they take a lot of time. Now keep in mind that steam is my best friend over heat. I'm not opposed to heat, but steam is just a wonderful ally of mine, and it will do the job very quickly. So just press it there. Usually there's just like 3 times. Do the top, and then do this side. And that's really all it is. It's not any more complicated than that. Again, all those seams are going out into the sleeve, and you see by the time I did those 3 little things, the whole entire sleeve is coming to the inside now. Now I'm going to press it just a little bit more, just simply because I'm going to put the shoulder pad in place, and I'm going to have to kind of just give it a little bit more steam. But you'll see with just those 3 little sections that I did, that sleeve's looking pretty darn good. Alright, so I'm going to get my shoulder pad. There's a little cut on the shoulder pad that'll indicate the where it should match the seam. The little cut there goes to the shoulder seam, and then I can just flip it to the other side. And you see that I get a really beautiful sleeve. It's got really nice support. I do come back and kind of press it over the shoulder pad. I use the shoulder pad as my ham. It really is kind of what I do. I extend the shoulder pad. I extend the shoulder pad a seam allowance into the sleeve. So if my seam allowance is 3/8, then my shoulder pad comes in to the sleeve 3/8, and you can see just what a beautiful sleeve that makes. Alright, so I'm going to put my pins in here. Just put one in the front. That's just right now to hold the shoulder pad in place while it's concave. Don't don't try to sew the pad in before you pin it, because it will slip, and then you can put one pad up here by the shoulder. Somebody had asked me if you can trim the pads down. Of course. This particular pad, the 1-inch pads that we have, they're really wide here at the neckline. So what I did on this side, as you can see, is I just picked how wide I wanted it to be, and then I just cut it to here and cut it to here so that the pad is the same width. I like the width of it because it comes in and fills up that concave, but it doesn't have to go past the neck edge. It shouldn't go past the neck edge, and it will still taper beautifully. So on this side of the shoulder pad, I sewed it here in place, I sewed it here, and then I sewed it at the neck edge. And so that's what I would do now with this sleeve as well. Okay, and let's put this back on the hanger just so you can kind of see what it looks like and see what you think. When I think that when a jacket is just new, I think that it really takes I think I like it much better a day or 2 in, when that sleeve's had a chance to kind of settle in. I think it looks better. I think it just hangs better. But I mean, it's beautiful now, don't get me wrong. And you can see, even with that little bit of pressing, how nice the sleeve works. Let me just put a pin right there. Well, it doesn't matter. How nice that sleeve looks, and how beautiful that cap is with just such a simple amount of that tie interfacing. It's magic. The reason it's magic is it does 2 things. It eases up the sleeve head, it eases up the sleeve, and then it becomes the sleeve head. The reason tie interfacing is used is because tie interfacing is used in ties because they don't want a crushed edge. They always want to keep a nice folded rounded edge, and that's the same as what I want to keep across the top of my sleeves. All right? Okay, any questions on that? How easy was that? Piece of cake? We can do this. That's probably the hardest part of the jacket, is really putting in those sleeves and making sure that they don't have those fruples. Those fruples really give us away, as that's been made by you at home. I use a 3.5 stitch length really most of the time. So yeah, I think it's a good overall stitch. You're going to find your sewing is much faster. It's easier to take it out if you make a mistake. It generally, I don't find a reason to go down to 3.0. So 3.5 is kind of my default go-to stitch. Would I do blouse sleeves? Oh no, blouse sleeves no. Blouse sleeves are only an inch of ease, front and back, total. So you can serge in blouse sleeves or sew in blouse sleeves by just putting the sleeve on the bottom. The sewing machine will take them up. There's no tie interfacing. They're a much softer sleeve. The tie interfacing is just for jackets. Okay, would you use your decorative elastic on this jacket exposed on the outside of the jacket? That's a great idea. I like that idea. The decorative elastic, meaning the gold and the silver exposed on the outside. I think that's a fabulous idea. If I'd have come up with it, I would have done it. But yes, I would. That's a really good idea. Especially something like this, that silver would have looked really, really awesome on the back there. See, that's why I need you guys, because I get brain dead on these ideas and you're always there. Jacket seams are just serged and pressed open. Yes, before I made this particular jacket, because it was unlined, you have several options, but I went around and serged each piece and then constructed on the sewing machine. With the purple jacket here, I'll show you the inside of this one. I went and just literally, because it was a knit, I went ahead and just serged the pieces together. So I didn't serge around each piece, I just serged the jacket together. Why? Because this was so much thinner, and I really wanted it. It was really the fabric differences. I knew I was going to top stitch this, and this was going to have a really nice look, but just different. Okay, just all style variations. Can you wash the jacket with the shoulder pad? Absolutely. You don't need to dry clean shoulder pads. There's nothing in a shoulder pad that water will hurt, so you can wash the shoulder pad. All right. The steam generator, my best friend. You guys, if you're ever in your sewing room and you're waiting for something, you can have a facial. Just be careful, because one time I was steaming something on me, and it's hot, it burns. But anyway, it's terrific. It's Rowenta. It's the DG, I don't know, DG 580, I think, or 5800. I don't remember. But just look up Rowentas, and it's a steam tank. There's no actual water in the iron. It's all in the tank below. All right. Are we good? We have a trivia question tonight. For those of you who have been paying attention, if you've been paying attention, you'll know this right away. Okay, so our bonus question is going to appear in the chat. And once it appears in the chat, then I'll answer it. Then I'll ask it online. So that way, we do it that way, you guys, just if you're new to watching these, is because the sound is different to different computers, whereas the actual text that's coming in the chat box is the same on all computers. So we actually put it into the chat first, just to be fair to everyone, so that you can get it, and then I ask it. Most of the time, by the time I ask it, somebody's already gotten it. So watch your chat box, okay? Don't listen to me. So we're hoping that you kind of follow along in some exciting events that took place here a little while ago. Those events were called... I know. Okay, here's the bonus question. I can ask it. Which country won the most medals in the recent Olympic Winter Games? Which country came out number 1? And we have a winner. We thought that would be fast. Could you answer number 2? Who came in second place? You don't get anything for that. You get $50 for the first one. Who won the first one? Barb. Congratulations, Barb. You got $50 in your box. You'll have a coupon code, and you just use that coupon code, and it will extend to you that discount. All right. So then, did anybody get number 2? Who came in second? Who came in third? And where did United States place? Fourth place. But the only difference between second and fourth place was 2 medals. That's pretty close. Obviously not close enough. That means we didn't even get a bronze. We got fourth place. That's not even... Anyway. It was wonderful. For those of you I know who watched, it was really a lot of fun to watch. It's amazing to watch those athletes. All right, anyway, we want to say good night. Thank you for being here. Make some jackets. You guys, I'm hoping that at this point we've made them just so simply easy. I have a whole new wardrobe of jackets. I love them. And we're going to make one more next month. We're going to do another one next month, and I'll explain why a little bit later. All right, anyway, happy sewing. Thanks for being here, and we will see you in 2 weeks. All right, good night.